All right, so we're going to begin with our statement of unity for today. And for that, I'd like to share a very different kind of statement of unity from what we're used to. It's one that is actually a collection of many statements put together that were put together and put out in a press release issued this past Monday. You may have seen it on our Facebook page or on our website. It was in our e-news on Thursday. And it is a statement that nearly 30 local clergy, myself included, signed and offered to the community as an open letter, inviting everyone into prayers for compassion, patience, and peace amidst this election season. And so, on behalf of my fellow colleagues of faith, I want to share and affirm our collective words with you this morning. To our fellow beloved residents, we are living in troubled times. Our country is afire with political divisiveness. We have family and friends dealing with the impact of the COVID-19 virus. Our communities are fragmented and in pain as we face the question of how to best address systemic oppression. We've all been witness and perhaps participated in less than ideal reactions and ways of being. Some of us are even at odds with our neighbors, friends, and family. We struggle with a tenuous grasp on civility and common care. But we have choices as well. We write to you today inviting you to join us in a commitment to hold one another with the respect, care, and civility we once knew so well. As we move to, through, and past Election Day, we call upon you to join us in the discomfort and uncertainty, knowing it is in our collective power to do so in mutual respect and care. Together, we can achieve what is eluding us in so many parts of our country. As leaders of a diverse family of faiths, we are somewhat accustomed to varying truths and even polar opposites. Our traditions include a wide variety of experiences of the divine, life after death, and even specific positions on societal practices and policies. But what we share is so much more important. Each of our faiths calls us to a valuing of one another. Each of our faiths values civil discourse higher than righteous anger. Each of our faiths believes that we are better together. Each of our faiths has some version of the golden rule. We cannot know the results of the election on November 3rd, and quite possibly will not know the results for many days to follow. We can know how each of us will choose to move through those days. We choose to do so prayerfully and holding dearest that which brings us closer to healing. We believe in a world in which differing opinions need not equate to enmity, where neighbors need not worry in the night their signs will be vandalized, where violence rooted in disagreement is unthinkable, and where each tomorrow finds us closer to one another rather than further entrenched and apart. We hope you will join us, whether it be in prayer, practice, or perhaps simply breathing. In the words of the Milwaukee Buddhist Peace Fellowship, difficult times can be an opportunity to remember our natural connection with each other and all of life. May we take a deep breath and collect our mind in gratitude and compassion. May we be present with those who find themselves in distress and fear. And may our lives be filled with kindness and joy. Yours on the journey toward a healed nation, safe, free, and just for all. And so today, and throughout the week or perhaps weeks ahead, as this election continues to unfold, Perhaps our condensed affirming statement could be, I take a deep breath and connect with spirit within, collecting my mind in gratitude and compassion, and offering kindness and joy. And so would you please join in repeating those words and affirming them after me so that we can all have the power of our spoken words together. So I take a deep breath and connect with spirit within. Collecting my mind in gratitude and compassion, and offering kindness and joy. And so now, a time to co-create our opening prayer for today, which will be our time of Sabbath morning. So if you would, just have your candle nearby ready to light. Wayne Muller notes that lighting a candle is one way in which a time of Sabbath is often begun. In the Jewish tradition, Sabbath begins at sunset, what Muller refers to as a time emerging as soft inner light at the darkening of the day. And candles are often lit to honor entering into that experience. In the Christian tradition, specifically and particularly in the Catholic Mass, candles are always lit before the service begins. Again, it is a ritual to invite people to prepare to enter into a very holy and sacred experience. And that's what we want to do today as well. And so I thought we could recreate one of our long-standing rituals when we're together at the church on Sunday mornings. Many of you, staff and volunteers who support our Sunday services at the church, are aware of the prayer circle that we create together before anyone else arrives. It's a ritual, and it's one that we practice as a means of surrendering to Spirit, which we've learned in our book is just another way of saying experiencing the Sabbath. We do it to bless the space that we're in. We're in it to bless all those who would join us that morning. And that blessing is created by everyone in the circle, one at a time, sharing a word of prayer. Sometimes it might be a quality that they wish to embody that day, or it might be a word or a short phrase that they wish to see more of in the world, or perhaps it's just a word that comes to them in that moment. And so I'm going to invite all of us to create our opening prayer, word by word by word, as we each take our turn lighting our candles. And what I would suggest that we say as we light our candle is simply, I light my Sabbath candle of, and then whatever your word would be. And I think the easiest way for us to do this is for me to just kind of call on you as I see your images across my screen at the moment. You do not have to participate if you don't want to. Just simply say pass, and I'll move on to the next person. If you don't have a candle, it doesn't mean you can't participate. Just offer your word. I light my inner Sabbath candle of, and whatever your word would be. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, and I don't think I can. I can't unmute everybody. So if you would all unmute yourselves, because you won't know when I'm going to call on you because you don't see what I'm seeing. And as you unmute yourselves, I'm going to ask that we all stay as mindful as possible about keeping our personal spaces as quiet as we possibly can so that we can hear clearly everyone's sacred word that they're going to share. Okay? And so let's just take a moment or two, just a second or two, to just get centered in our hearts and open to this time of beautiful Sabbath prayer offered by and to all of us. And so I'll begin by sharing a Hasidic poem that was included in our book for this morning of Sabbath. I'll share the lighting of my candle and then offer each of you the opportunity to do the same. And so from the Hasidic tradition, take care to guard your tongue before the morning prayer. Even greeting your fellow, we are told, can be harmful at that hour. A person who wakes up in the morning is like a new creation. Begin your day with unkind words or even trivial matters. Even though you may later turn to prayer, you've not been true to your creation. All of your words each day are related to one another. All of them are rooted in the first words you speak. And so now I light my Sabbath candle of wisdom. And Cheryl and Hilda, if you would go ahead and light yours.
I light my Sabbath candle in the name of harmony, in the name of love.
Jan, or Joy.
I light my Sabbath candle in the name of peace.
Brenda.
I light my Sabbath candle, inner Sabbath candle of connection.
Ernie.
I light my Sabbath candle of understanding.
Nancy and Raleigh.
I light my Sabbath candle in the name of faith.
And I light my Sabbath candle in the name of unity.
Bob.
I light my Sabbath candle in the name of peace.
Kay.
I light my Sabbath candle of mindfulness.
Lori.
I light my Sabbath candle for peace.
Chuck and Susie.
We light our Sabbath candle in the spirit of universal acceptance.
And I light mine in the spirit of serenity.
Paul.
You're muted, Paul. Oh, peace.
Okay, peace. Libby.
I light my Sabbath candle being at peace without anxiety as we experience this transition, the shift, and the change. And I trust in spirit.
Carol.
I light my Sabbath candle in the name of truth.
Joanne.
I light my Sabbath candle in the name of harmony.
Blake and Yvette.
We light our Sabbath candle in the name of
Oneness
and acceptance.
Yvonne.
I light my Sabbath candle in the name of hope.
Those are all great.
Kathleen. Brooke.
I light my Sabbath candle in the name of compassion.
Deb.
I light my candle in light of consideration.
Sheila.
I light my Sabbath candle in the name of peace.
Did I miss anyone? All right. I don't know if you are in gallery view or not, but if you can be, you can just see all of the candles. It looks beautiful. And I thank you for doing that. And so it is with these sacred words that we bless our service, we bless each other, we bless our country and our world. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.
So now we've come to our experience of a Sabbath afternoon. And again, this is one that we will co-create together. In doing so, what I'd like to ask us to try is to create a time that would be more meditative in nature. I had asked you to consider one of the questions included in our study guide for the series for this week. And one of those questions included a statement from this week's reading that said, "It is a splendid moment which I carry with me and helps me step back into the whirlwind." This was a statement made to Wayne Muller by a woman who was identified as Janet, who shared that her Sabbath afternoons were oftentimes times of walking meditations. There was a time where her husband had been running for governor, and she recalled how hectic their lives had become during that time, and she would force herself to just sit down to rest, and she found that to be completely ineffective. And so she began to walk. And she shared how she was able to engage with the silence, to engage with the air, to engage with the ground under her feet. Her mind would just let go of all thoughts, and her steps would become almost effortless. That's what she referred to as her splendid moment. She had had a splendid moment of engaging the silence, a splendid moment of letting go of all thoughts, a splendid moment of effortless walking. To create our afternoon meditation, I'm inviting you to share, if you would like, one splendid moment that this series and your discussions, your reading, and all the material has helped you discover. A splendid moment that supports you as you return to your daily whirlwinds, if you will. And I encourage you to frame it as Janet did, just as a word or a short phrase. And what I'll do is try to make note of each one that is shared, and then I'll bring everything to a close when everyone else feels complete. And we'll close this part of our Sabbath day. So unlike our opening prayer, I'm not going to call on anybody. I think that would be too disruptive to what we're trying to create here. So I'm just going to leave it up to you. And just so that you know, everyone is muted. And so when you would like to share, please be sure to unmute yourself so that we can hear what you want to say, and then mute yourself again when you are complete. And if two of you start talking at the same time, don't worry about that. Just one of you gently defer to the other, and then offer your word or phrase when they are done. And so I'll watch our time. We'll give this maybe about 10 minutes or so in total, and that should be plenty of time to share. So just remember, it's a word or a phrase that has become at least one of your splendid moments that you can take into your tomorrows when this series is complete. And then our Sabbath evening, which will follow this experience, will be a time for more extended sharing, by anyone who would like. Okay. All right, so let's just take again just that intentional moment to breathe into our hearts, become comfortable where we are as we prepare to move into our Sabbath afternoon. And whenever anyone is ready to share, please go ahead and get us started. And just remember to unmute yourself and then mute yourself again.
My name is Cheryl Charles. This is my wife, Hilda Charles. And I'll kick this off. And my splendid moment came early on in the series. I can't quote it, but it was a story of a, of a group of people or tribe that were nomads, and they traveled, and every couple days they would travel for a few days, and then they would stop and rest for a few days so that their soul could catch up to them. And that resonated with me. So my splendid moment came when Hilda and I we retired 2 years ago, and while it's been a wonderful life filled with lots of beautiful, grateful, prosperity, abundance things, it was every corner of it was filled, and we didn't seem to take time to breathe it in. And so there was a sort of a disconnection or disharmony there. And so in reading that, we decided one day we don't live very far from the church, and we hopped in the car and drove over to the church and took a walk behind the church so that our souls could catch up to us. And it was a splendid moment, and it was so joyful for me that it just brought me to tears, and I wept with joy at that splendid moment that I will remember for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Thank you.
My splendid moment came from one of the quotes that are listed in the book, and I think those are some of those meaningful parts of the book for me. I loved each and every one of those. And it's the one that ends, my need. Something's missing in my heart tonight. And my need of God becomes actually absolutely clear. That gives me a sense of respite to get away from all the madness that might be circling around us or around me. That when I notice that my need of God is absolutely clear, it becomes much stronger because I'm able to connect at that particular point. And it really does give me a much greater sense of peace and well-being, and a chance to just escape everything that's swirling around and connect with that which is truly important.
Thank you, Bob.
I'm going to read a sentence. This is Brooke, and then say what it meant to me, because this was important, a sacred moment. Sabbath time can become our refuge. During the Sabbath, we set aside a sanctuary in time, disconnect from the frenzy of consumption and accomplishment, and consecrate our day as an offering for healing all beings. And basically what that did for me, it gave me permission to commit to Sabbath and not always be doing something, always be busy, always feel like I have to accomplish something. It gives me permission to take time out. And I love that part, as an offering for healing all beings, that it's not just about me, but connecting with that power that can help heal us all. So I really appreciated that permission to do that.
Thank you.
I had a splendid moment the other day. I was actually at a restaurant downtown. It was a cold day, but I decided I really wanted one of those special hamburgers I'd heard about. So I was at this little restaurant sitting on the porch, eating, loving every bit of it with the sunshine in my eyes. And it just took me so deep. It was like every part of my body was rejoicing in just the goodness of life.
Thank you, Joy.
This is Brenda. I always feel connected and to nature, and that always brings me, a lot of serenity. And I love Mary Oliver, And this is a little short poem of hers. I am not the river, that powerful presence, and I am not the black oak tree, which is patience personified, and I'm not the red bird, who is a brief life heartily enjoyed, nor am I mud, nor rock, nor sand, which is holding everything together. No, I am none of these meaningful things, not yet. That's it.
This is Libby. And every time I think of all of these powerful points that are in this book and in the program, I think of a Buddhist saying, comes to me almost every single day. And I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's something like the power and the importance of being still. And if there is no stillness, there is no silence. And if there is no silence, there is no insight. And if there is no insight, there is no clarity. And I think every time that we step apart and we become still, the quiet follows. And sometimes the quiet isn't always an easy place to be. Sometimes other things bubble to the surface in the pond. But after a while, the body and the mind, the breath begin to settle down, and there will be insight. It may not happen in that moment, but over time, the more we practice the art of being still. And so that's kind of what it brings to me, because over time, that stillness brings silence. And just like in the song, it said, you have to have quiet sometimes to have creativity. I think it's all pointing in that same direction, insight and clarity, so we know how to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one more, if anybody would like to share.
Hi, this is Sheila. My splendid moment. Working from home has been a big shift, and somewhere in the book, Wayne had talked about setting up a ritual for the end of the day when you take the hand off the plow. And so for me, taking the hand off the plow is taking my hand off the keyboard. And because I work from home now, I don't want my home space to become just work 24/7. So I have a ritual that I do now. I take my splendid candle and I light it and I say a blessing to signify me taking the hand off the proverbial plow. And it really helps me mentally shift into now is the time for rest.
Thank you. And so let's just take a moment to allow all that has been shared to just settle gently into our hearts as we consider our soul catching up with us, feeling, sensing a draw towards respite, giving ourselves permission to commit to a time of Sabbath where we can connect with the power of healing, the joy of rejoicing, the blessing that words of poetry speak to our hearts, to be in the stillness and allow the silence to speak to us, to gain the insights we seek, the clarity we desire. All a part of a ritual where we each take our hands off the plow that is in our lives, keeping us too much in the whirlwind and out of balance with rest. And so we bless each and every one of these splendid moments, spoken aloud or held in our hearts, grateful for the ways that they have touched our hearts, and for the energy that they'll continue to bring forth in ways that renew us and remind us of the importance of slowing down and spending time with our oneness with God. And so it is. Amen. So maybe just a breath in and back out again as we move into our Sabbath evening. Our Sabbath evening. You know, during this particular time of Sabbath, Wayne Muller writes that it is often a time that is used and dedicated to blessings. Blessings that can be offered over food before partaking of a meal, blessings that can be offered to one's children, blessings that can be offered to friends and other members of our family, blessings that come through the use of prayer cards, angel cards, poetry, verses of scripture, blessings that come through song. And I believe that one of the most wonderful blessings we receive is in that moment of clarity, clarity that comes forth whenever we are entering into a time of questioning, a time of discerning. And Sabbath is certainly a practice that's designed to bring those particular blessings forth. And so for our Sabbath evening, the lesson part of our service today, I'd ask you to spend time with another one of the questions that was in the study guide for this week. And it spoke to the idea of blessing, a blessing that you have received during this series as you've come to clarity around Spirit's place in your life. The question offered a partial quote from the poet Hafiz, and it centered on one's need, one's desire for God. And the full quote from Hafiz says, "Don't surrender your loneliness so quickly. Let it cut more deep. Let it ferment and season you as few human or even divine ingredients can. Something missing in my heart tonight has made my eyes so soft, my voice so tender, my need of God absolutely clear." And the question I posed for you over the last couple of weeks for your consideration was, what has made your need, your desire of God so clear? And whatever your answers are, what I would like to ask that you share, if you're comfortable in doing so that all of us can just collectively support you in that knowing, as well as be inspired by you and this particular part of your life story. And so we're going to do this the same way we did our Sabbath afternoon, our more meditative time. Just share as you're guided, mute and unmute yourselves. We'll have, again, about maybe 10 to 15 minutes of sharing, and then I'll bring the experience to a close. So I'll watch the clock, kind of give a heads up when we have time for one more. And so with that, whoever would like to get us started, I anxiously await hearing what you have to share.
Living in a new town with no connections, no family other than an hour and a half away, and having all these dreams of moving here and making all kinds of connections has really drawn me closer to God, because he's always there. I know the Spirit of God just fills me. I'm in him and he's in me, and I'm realizing it more and more every day. So I love that.
Thank you.
This is Brooke. With all that's been going on in the world and in our country, and for me and my family, having a sick grandchild that I can't do anything about, I find myself in need of trust and faith in God more than ever. And I find myself turning it over to God so much more. And it gives me hope. It gives me hope because I do have faith and I do have trust. And in my heart of hearts, and knowing that somehow this is going to work itself out over time. I don't know how or what the outcome's going to be, but it has made me feel closer in many ways. And the Sabbath practice and the silence and the connecting more has really helped me in being able to be closer to God. That's all.
Thank you, Brooke.
This is Nancy. And I think what has brought me closer and how God has been important in my life is that I owe everything to God. I can't do this alone. And everything that I have, this abundance, this prosperity has come from my God. And it is very humbling, but I feel very grateful at the same time.
What has brought me closer to God is realizing that my need of God is absolutely clear. That whenever I feel myself starting to go over the edge, I can take a moment, connect with Spirit, and at least for that moment, regain some degree of hope. The knowledge that, like someone else has said, that even though these are really difficult times, something is changing before us, and we are moving to a point where we'll be much closer to peace. And it's absolutely crucial for me at this point to maintain and to let that connection with God grow.
I've heard unity is a practical Christianity. And so my practical spiritual faith has been exponentially enriched over these last 12 months that I've been out on Spider Lake. I practically spend typically about an hour in prayer and meditation and reading, sometimes 2 hours. Like today, probably about 3 hours of practical spiritual work. After this service, I'll be doing the final steps of becoming a member at Unity of Traverse City. And then ultimately making choices about service, because it's not just about sitting in my house and being peaceful with my own stuff. It's about how, the ultimate result is to get peaceful within myself so that I can serve. And in the last 12 months also, not just church home related, but also have made a significant reinvestment into recovery in 12 steps. Consistent meeting attendance and working working with a sponsor and working on steps later on today. I'm working on 6 and 7. So in the meat and potatoes of things, if you know what those are. But bottom line is that my reinvestment into actual doing verb Christianity has had a huge impact. So do it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Libby here. I think that one of the things that I have to tell myself that I need, and it's okay to need this, is that my life's work is kind of being strong, helping other people through issues as a yoga therapist and helping people with emotional and physical issues. And I think it's okay for me to let myself experience some feelings that I don't always think are okay for me to experience, like being angry. And sometimes, and I'm sure all of you felt this way during this time, there are times I feel really angry about what's going on, mad about what's going on, the injustice of what's going on. And saying to myself, just like all emotions, it's okay to have those feelings. But the thing with emotions is they come and they go. The important thing is that you just don't let them get stuck, that you don't take the ride on the anger and stay with it, that you let it happen and then you let it flow through and let it be replaced with something more beneficial, which will happen if you let it flow. So for me, I need to know that it's okay to have those emotions that sometimes feel a little distasteful. You don't want to be angry, but sometimes you are. So it's okay to express it, then let it be replaced with an affirmation or positive thought. And that reminds me of my deep connection with God. God says that's okay.
Thanks, Libby.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Okay. I'll share mine to bring this to a time of close. And that is that I remembered back through my seminary years as to how all of this training and all of this information that we were being given and offered, we were also very often told that we don't have to remember all of it. We don't have to, somehow have all, every Bible verse memorized or leadership skill, at a certain level. Just if you can't answer a question that someone poses to you, just know how to find the answer. And what this series and this particular question has brought very clear to me in terms of my need for spirit in my life is that nothing that I have gone through for the most part of this year is in a book. They're being written as each day goes by, but there has not been a place to say, just hold on to that question and I'll go find the answer and go to a research book of some kind or notes from school. And so my need of God has become very clear with having experienced so many questions over the bulk of this year that I have not been able to answer. Some answers have come, many more have not yet. They're on their way. And so that has just made it doubly, triply clear for me the importance of Sabbath time in my life, to just, if I can do nothing else, strengthen that connection that I have with spirit within. And so again, beautiful sharing by all of you. Thank you so much. And we have indeed been blessed by all that has been offered. And we have also been supported over these past 7 weeks now by a prayer that was created especially for this series. And the closing line to this prayer, applicable to this final Sunday, says, "My heart is lifted, my spirit refreshed, as I connect body, mind, and spirit with the world." And so what I can share with you is that my heart is lifted by the wings of gratitude this morning. Gratitude for all of you and your engagement with this series, and immense gratitude for this service that you have created here this morning. And so to end, I will simply offer the closing prayer that was written for this final week of Sabbath as we bring to a close our Sabbath day. And my prayer is that as I speak these words, you hear the words coming to you as if from your own hearts. I give thanks for Sabbath, a time to remember that everything I receive is a blessing. I go forward with renewed intentions to seek the joy in life, to honor my gifts and share them freely, and to set aside a plenitude of time to rest in the stillness with the wisdom of Spirit in me. I remain open to wonderful insights and to cultivating a life filled with grace, well-being, and happiness. And so it is, we pray. Amen. And God bless you all.